Hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching Namaste World, your daily window into the biggest stories shaping India and the world. We begin in the United States, where President Donald Trump's Gaza peace boat draws Russia in as America moves to reshape global power beyond the United Nations. In West Asia, the US and Iran move toward a possible war as warships, jets, and threats rise fear across the region. Trump's Greenland push in the Arctic shakes NATO unity as Europe pushes back and Russia watches closely. But the biggest news of the day, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has signed Trump's peace boat charter at Davos. The irony is that debt-ridden nation is shelling out $1 billion to become a permanent member. Meanwhile, it's also trying to roll over $2.5 billion debt from the United Arab Emirates. All that and more. Global flashpoints, power plays, and the stories that matter coming up in this edition of Namaste World. So stay tuned. So we begin with the biggest news of the day. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has signed the Board of Peace Charter alongside US President Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, Trump has previously described the newly formed body as potentially the most prestigious board ever formed. The project originated in his 20-point Gaza ceasefire plan endorsed by the United Nations Security Council but has expanded far beyond its initial mandate. Trump suggested the board could eventually assume UN functions or render the world body obsolete. However, the irony is that the debt-ridden nation of Pakistan was also a signatory at the signing ceremony. Many are pointing out that Islamabad is shelling out $1 billion to become a permanent member of the body. However, Pakistan has requested the United Arab Emirates to roll over a debt of $2.5 billion for 2 years. Not to forget, Pakistan has been consistently dependent on the International Monetary Fund for bailout packages to run their economy. On the other hand, Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir is set to meet Trump on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Critics within Pakistan have already accused the government of following Trump's diktat to stay in his good books. Many warn that Islamabad is trending principles and proximity to power. The optics are stark. A cash-strapped Pakistan, led by a dominant military establishment, appears ready to align itself with the controversial US-led Gaza framework in the hope of economic relief and political cover. For now, the Davos meeting underscores a familiar pattern. Pakistani leadership believes being in Trump's good book will help them in evolving global order. But chasing short-term leverage in Washington won't be much of help as domestic political costs mount and public opposition grows louder. US President Donald Trump's proposed Board of Peace isn't just about Gaza. It signals a bold attempt to reshape global power, sidelines the United Nations, and pull Russia back into US-led order. President Putin's cautious response and billion-dollar offer reveal how high the geopolitical stakes really are. Here is a report by Farhan Khan.
The idea of a US-led Board of Peace for post-war Gaza may sound like another diplomatic initiative, but the invitation extended to Russian President Vladimir Putin suggests something far bigger is at play. This is not just about Gaza. It is about power, influence, and the future shape of the global order. US President Donald Trump has proposed the Board of Peace as a body to oversee governance and reconstruction in Gaza after the war. Initially envisioned as a small group, it has rapidly expanded into an ambitious forum with a mandate that could extend to resolving multiple global conflicts. Some have even compared it to a rival structure to the United Nations. When Trump announced at the World Economic Forum in Davos that Putin had already agreed to join, the Kremlin quickly pushed back. Putin clarified that Russia was still studying the proposal and would decide only after consultations with its strategic partners. At the same time, he made a striking offer. Russia would be willing to contribute $1 billion for permanent membership of the board, potentially using Russian assets frozen by the United States.
Хотел бы прежде всего поблагодарить президента США за это предложение. Мы всегда поддерживали и поддерживаем любые усилия, направленные на укрепление международной стабильности. Отмечаем также и вклад действующей администрации США в поиске решения по урегулированию украинского кризиса. Что касается нашего участия в Совете мира, то МИДу России поручено изучить поступившие к нам документы, проконсультироваться на этот счет с нашими стратегическими партнерами, и только после этого мы сможем дать ответ на переданное нам приглашение. До решения нами вопроса об участии в составе и в самой работе Совета мира, учитывая особые отношения России с палестинским народом, мы могли бы, я думаю, направить в Совет мира $1 миллиард США из замороженных еще при прежней администрации США российских активов. Кстати, оставшиеся средства из наших же замороженных в США активов можно было бы использовать и на восстановление территорий, пострадавших в ходе боевых действий после заключения мирного договора между Россией и Украиной. Такая возможность также обсуждается нами с представителями администрации США.
So why invite Russia at all? The answer lies in Trump's broader strategy. Reports suggest invitations were sent to nearly 60 world leaders across Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Many key West Asian states are included, such as Turkey and Qatar, but one major player is notably absent: the United Nations. This is deliberate. Trump has openly suggested that the Board of Peace will go beyond Gaza. In effect, he is attempting to build a new global mechanism that bypasses the UN and recenters global decision-making around US-led power politics.
Do you want your Board of Peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
Within this framework, Russia's inclusion is strategic by bringing Moscow into the fold alongside former Soviet states like Belarus, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Uzbekistan. Trump is signaling an attempt to reintegrate Russia into a Western-led system after years of sanctions and isolation following the Ukraine war. Shared interests in energy markets, the Arctic space, and nuclear governance make this outreach plausible. By cautiously aligning with Trump's initiative rather than shaping an alternative of its own, Moscow appears to be operating from a position of constraint rather than confidence. Once a central pole in global diplomacy, Russia is now signaling willingness to adapt to US-led structures, even controversial ones. This is evident in its silence on Trump's openly floated idea of US control over Greenland, a proposal that would once have triggered strong objections from Moscow on strategic and Arctic grounds. That Russia has shown no resistance underscores how sanctions, prolonged war, and growing dependence on China have narrowed its strategic options. Participation in the Board of Peace offers Moscow relevance and resources, but at the cost of accepting a framework largely designed in Washington. Russia is being invited not because of Gaza alone, but because Trump is attempting to reshape the global order. Whether this new Board of Peace can function remains uncertain. What is clear is that the invitation to Russia reflects a high-stakes geopolitical gamble, one that could redefine alliances, institutions, and power itself. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
The clock is ticking in West Asia as US warships moves in, jets deployed, and warnings turned sharper by the hour. President Donald Trump refuses to rule out force, Iran is threatening retaliation, and Israel is bracing for impact. Are the world's next shot is about to be fired? Here is a report by Srijita Sen Majumdar.
The clock is ticking in the Middle East, and the United States is looking for what could be the biggest showdown with Iran in decades. Right now, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is steaming toward the region, going dark as it moves through the Bay of Bengal. F-15E Strike Eagles are flying east from England. C-17 cargo jets are hauling tanks, fighting vehicles, and air defense systems into position. This isn't a drill, this is preparation. US President Donald Trump just refused to rule out military action against Iran's regime. His words at the White House were crystal clear. Is the military option off the table? No. Mass protests across Iran that have left thousands dead. Trump claims he stopped the regime from executing 837 protesters last week with a single threat. Iran's not backing down. Their military spokesperson just warned Trump, if any hand of aggression is extended towards our leader, we will not only cut that hand, but set fire to their world. Iranian state TV even broadcast a chilling image of Trump from the Butler assassination attempt with a message in Persian. This time, the bullet won't miss. Meanwhile, Israel is preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says they're ready to act with might Iran has never seen before. Israeli officials are even willing to absorb 700 missiles from Tehran if it means regime collapse. Think about that. They're willing to take the hit if it ends the threat. But here's the reality check. Even with 30,000 troops, 6 warships, and tactical aircraft in the region, military analysts say the US isn't fully prepared for sustained operation against Iran or the massive military barrage that would follow. Both sides have learned deadly lessons from the 12-day war last June. Iran's cranking out ballistic missiles at record speed. Israel's interceptor stockpiles are questioned. And the whole world is watching 2 nuclear-capable powers circle each other. Trump's made his position brutally clear. If Iran makes a move against him, and I quote, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth. The guns of January are locked and loaded. The question isn't if tensions will explode, but when. And what happens next could reshape the entire Middle East for generations. With Srijita Sen Majumdar, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Greenland is no longer just an icy island on the map. President Donald Trump's renewed push to control it is shaking NATO unity, alarming Europe, and quietly pleasing Russia. Is this just Trump's pressure politics or the start of a shift that could change the global balance of power? Here's a report by Sharif.
US President Donald Trump's renewed push for Greenland is no longer just a territorial obsession. It's fast turning into a geopolitical earthquake, and Russia may be watching with a smile. For decades, NATO has stood on one unbreakable promise: one for all for one. But Trump's standoff with Europe over Greenland is testing that foundation like never before. Trump has openly said there is no going back on Greenland. He has ruled out the use of force and stepped back from threatening tariffs on European allies, but questioned whether NATO would really defend the United States if push came to shove.
We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them.
That rhetoric has rattled Europe. Denmark has drawn a firm red line on sovereignty. France has warned against bending to the law of the strongest. The European Union is even considering retaliatory tariffs, including its so-called trade bazooka. And while Western leaders scramble for damage control in Davos, Moscow is barely hiding its delight. Russia's foreign minister says NATO is in deep crisis. The Kremlin praises Trump's Greenland gambit as historic. Pro-Kremlin voices openly speculate that this rift could weaken or even dismantle the alliance altogether. Why does this matter? Because a divided NATO is Russia's long-standing strategic dream. Military experts warn that even a small crack in alliance unity could invite provocation, especially in vulnerable regions like the Baltic states. If Article 5 fails once, NATO's core idea collapses. Greenland, once seen as a frozen outpost, has suddenly become ground zero in a new great power rivalry over security, minerals, and influence in the Arctic. For Trump, it's about leverage and dominance. For Europe, it's about sovereignty and survival. And for Russia, it's a rare opportunity to watch the Western alliance fracture from within. The question now is simple. Is this just another Trump pressure tactic, or the beginning of a shift that could reshape the global order itself? Because if NATO cracks, the consequences won't stay frozen in the Arctic. With Sharif, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
As we wrap up today's show, here's a quick look at the top stories making waves around the world. A landslide triggered by the heavy rain struck a campsite in New Zealand, leaving several missing. Emergency crews are searching for survivors at the popular Mount Morgony tourist spot. Tokyo Electric Power restarts a reactor at Japan's largest nuclear power plant, a first since the 2011 Fukushima disaster, following safety inspections and boosting Tokyo's power supply. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Namaste World. From breakthrough in technology and business to political developments and natural disasters. Stay tuned as we bring you the latest updates, key developments, and more from New Delhi to New York. So, see you again tomorrow, same time right here on Namaste World.